All right, you've seen all the must-see sights in Rome, and you're wondering, what else can you do? As you can imagine, there is no shortage of things to see and do here in Rome. The Romans have a saying, non basta una vita, which means a lifetime is not enough. And I agree. On today's video, I'm going to share with you my 5 favorite, stunning palazzos and villas you can visit here in Rome. These are some of the most art-filled and historic places in the city, former homes of popes, cardinals, aristocrats, and bankers. When you enter these sites, you can feel the ambition, the power, and the beauty. So let me show you how you can visit them. If you're new here, I'm Alyssa. I've lived in Rome since 2001, I'm married to a Roman, and I love Rome. And on this channel, I love sharing my love of Rome with you, and I hope to help you have your best visit here. First, what's the difference between a palazzo and a villa? In Rome, a palazzo was usually a grand city residence, a statement of wealth and influence. These were places where noble families lived, governed, and welcomed dignitaries, and where they commissioned great art to show off their status. A villa, by contrast, was a retreat, something we would consider a large estate. Often surrounded by lush gardens, a villa was about pleasure, leisure, and getting away from the politics of the city, although still with plenty of grandeur. Hadrian's villa is the perfect example. As Roman emperor, Hadrian would have had to spend time in Rome, but probably the pressures of the job meant that he needed someplace to retreat, someplace to get away from it all. Hadrian's villa is one of the largest ever built, and it's a great day trip from Rome, and I urge you to visit it if you have time. Another example of a villa here in Rome is the Villa Borghese Park. Today, the Villa Borghese is a public park, but at one time it was the private villa, the private estate of the noble Borghese family. One of the most famous places to visit inside of the Villa Borghese is the Galleria Borghese, or the Borghese Museum. What I want to share with you on today's video are villas and palazzos where you can actually go inside, where you can see how these noble families once lived. And as an added bonus, most of these sites are never crowded. You could visit Rome several times over and still miss the Villa Farnesina if you didn't know about it. But if one of the reasons you came to Rome was to see Renaissance masterpieces, you would be doing yourself a big disservice by not visiting this stunning villa. It was built in the early 1500s for Agostino Chigi, a wealthy banker from Siena and close ally of the popes. In fact, one of Agostino Chigi's relatives, his great-nephew Fabio Chigi, became Pope Alexander VII, in 1655. The architect of Agostino Chigi's palazzo was Baldassare Peruzzi, also from Siena. Peruzzi created a villa that combines classical harmony with cutting-edge illusionistic painting. The interiors were decorated by some of the greatest artists of the High Renaissance: Raphael, Sebastiano del Piombo, Giulio Romano, and Peruzzi himself. The most famous room is the Loggia of Cupid and Psyche, where Raphael in his workshop painted a mythological love story in vivid, swirling color. It's pure visual poetry. Just off of the Loggia of Cupid and Psyche is a smaller room called the Loggia di Galatea. The room is named for the fresco of the nymph Galatea, which was done by Raphael himself. Most of the rest of the frescoes in this room were done by Baldassare Peruzzi. Once you've taken a look around this room, it's impossible not to look up and gaze at the ceiling. Baldassare Peruzzi frescoed the entire ceiling with constellations of the zodiac along with celestial spheres. Some scholars believe this ceiling might reflect the exact position of the stars on Agostino Chigi's birthday, almost like a painted horoscope. Upstairs, in the Salone delle Prospettive, which means the room of the perspectives, Peruzzi created a trompe-l'oeil illusion of columns and terraces, one of the earliest of its kind. During the infamous and horrific sack of Rome of May 6, 1527, mercenaries known as Landsknechts occupied the villa. They defaced the walls with graffiti, some of which you can see today. You might be wondering why we called this the Villa Farnesina when it was clearly built by Agostino Chigi, who was not a Farnese. And in fact, initially it was called the Villa Chigi. But after Agostino Chigi died, the villa passed to the hands of the Farnese family. the same family who built the Palazzo Farnese on the other side of the Tiber River. To distinguish this villa from their country estate, the grand Villa Farnese in Caprarola, and from their urban Palazzo Farnese across the river, this villa became known as the Farnesina, which is a diminutive form of Farnese, ina, little. I don't think it's so little, but there you go. Although I suppose that when you compare this palazzo to the Palazzo Farnese across the river and the huge villa in Caprarola, it does seem smaller by comparison. You can easily visit the Villa Farnesina on your own. I'm putting the official link to the villa in the description below. As I just mentioned, across the river from the Villa Farnesina stands the Palazzo Farnese, one of the most commanding Renaissance palazzos in Rome. It was built for Cardinal Alessandro Farnese, who would later become Pope Paul III. Several major architects of the day worked on this palazzo, including Antonio da Sangallo the Younger, Giacomo della Porta, but probably most famously, Michelangelo. He redesigned the upper story and added the monumental window and cornice we see today. Palazzo Farnese became a model of high Renaissance symmetry and scale. And while I think it's worth visiting all the rooms of this beautiful palazzo, probably the highlight is the Carracci Gallery. The room was frescoed by Bolognese artist Annibale Carracci and his workshop. The entire room is a feast for the eyes, but probably the star is the ceiling. The ceiling painting is called The Loves of the Gods, and it's a masterpiece of Baroque classicism. When you face Palazzo Farnese from Piazza Farnese, you might notice the French flag there. That's because today, Palazzo Farnese is home to the French embassy. So it's not as easy to visit as the Villa Farnesina, but it is possible to visit it. You just have to go through the official embassy website, which I'm linking to in the description below. Because this is not an easy reservation to get, just because space is limited and tours don't run every day, if you want to visit Palazzo Farnese, I suggest booking this as long in advance as possible. There are few places in Rome that feel as grand and as strangely overlooked as Palazzo Colonna. This stunning palazzo has been in the same family for over 800 years. It's the definition of old world nobility. In fact, Prince Colonna and his family still live here. But you're unlikely to see him when you visit this palazzo because there is a lot of the palazzo that you can visit as a museum. When you walk through this palazzo, you do feel as though you're walking through a noble person's home. I just love wandering through the rooms of this beautifully decorated palazzo and the garden in the back. But I think everyone can agree that the masterpiece of Palazzo Colonna is the Grand Gallery. This long, dazzling hall filled with mirrors, chandeliers, gilded stucco, and monumental paintings was even featured in the movie Roman Holiday. The palazzo was featured as the home of Audrey Hepburn's character, Princess Anne. When you're inside the Grand Gallery of Galleria Colonna, after you've taken a look at all the beautiful artwork on the walls, on the ceiling, take a look at the small staircase and you'll find a cannonball lodged there. This cannonball was fired by French troops in 1849 during the French siege of the Roman Republic. Just a couple of fascinating facts about Palazzo Colonna's long history include Oddone Colonna was elected Pope in the year 1417. He took the name Martin V, and he was responsible for ending the Western Schism and moving the papal court back to Rome permanently. He was also the last pope to take the name Martin. During the later years of his life, Michelangelo spent a lot of time here visiting his dear friend Vittoria Colonna. They shared a love of art, poetry, and philosophy. The artist Caravaggio once took refuge here after killing a man in a duel, and the Colonna family used their influence to protect him. Palazzo Colonna is only open to the public on Friday and Saturday mornings. Guided tours in different languages are available through their website, which I'm linking to in the description below. Another noble palazzo hiding in plain sight right in Rome's center on Via del Corso is the Palazzo Doria Pamphilj. Some of the members of the family still live here, but the main rooms on the ground floor are open as a museum, and it's called Galleria Doria Pamphilj. But the part I want to tell you to visit in this video, which is about visiting noble palaces where you can see how they live, is the secret apartment of the Palazzo Doria Pamphilj. I think most visitors miss this because it's not part of the same ticket as the regular museum ticket. It's also not the same entrance as the museum entrance. This short, self-guided visit gives you a rare glimpse into the private world of one of Rome's great noble families. The rooms are richly decorated but more intimate, with velvet walls, ornate furnishings, and personal portraits. I love the cribs and the doll collection in the children's room. There's even a private bathroom featuring the Fountain of Diana. This is the only historic palazzo in Rome where you can see what a real aristocratic bathroom looked like. The apartment is still used occasionally by members of the Doria Pamphilj family who live on the upper floors. Occasionally, the space hosts small, intimate concerts. In the description below, I have links where you can book this if you like. A visit to this secret apartment is actually really easy. It's open almost every day of the week, and you can purchase your ticket right at the apartment itself, which is on the ground floor of the Palazzo Doria Pamphilj. It's only €6. It's completely separate from the museum ticket, so you can decide to combine it with a museum visit or not. As a bonus, the Palazzo Doria Pamphilj has 2 wonderful places to eat. At their indoor cafe, you can enjoy breakfast, brunch, lunch, or aperitivo, and inside their beautiful cloister, you can enjoy lunch, aperitivo, or dinner. The first 4 palazzos I shared with you were part of Rome's Renaissance and Baroque period. If the other palazzos show off Rome's classical elegance, Villa Torlonia is something else entirely. Built in the 19th century for the Torlonia family, bankers who bought their way into nobility, it's an eclectic estate full of neoclassical buildings and whimsical architecture. In the 20th century, it became the official residence of Benito Mussolini, who lived here on and off between 1925 and 1943. You can even visit the underground bunker he had built during World War II. The most unusual building on the grounds is the Casina delle Civette, which means the House of the Owls. It's an Art Nouveau fantasy full of stained glass, carved wood, and symbolic animals. Another building on the property is the Casa del Principe, or the Prince's House. This space is used to hold temporary exhibits, but the main building to me is the most interesting thing to visit. It has truly retained its character as a noble palazzo, complete with an enormous ballroom. Inside, you'll see a collection of art from ancient Rome all the way through to more modern artists such as Canova. Each room is more interesting, beautiful, and unusual than the next. Most of the villa is a public park, but you can purchase a ticket to visit the buildings there. There's even a cafe on the grounds where you can eat inside or outside. The food isn't amazing, but it is a lovely place to enjoy some refreshment. If you do decide to visit Villa Torlonia, I suggest taking a short walk to go see the beautiful Coppede district. I included it in my video about 4 special Roman neighborhoods to explore. You can check it out right here.